Hello, this is Wes Simpson with TV Technology Magazine. With me here today is Shawn Maynard, who is Senior Vice President of Operations and General Manager for Florical, as well as Chris Lennon, who is the Executive Director of the Open Software Alliance. Today we're going to be talking about how to get started using cloud services. Shawn, would you like to get started?
Sure. I think it's an incredibly important topic that we see the evolution of technology moving toward uh, more cloud-based technology, and which enables a number of different functionality. Um, so this is, I think, a really hot topic right now.
So, can you define what a cloud is?
Yeah, Chris, do you want to take that first?
I'm happy to take that one because that's kind of one of the most fundamental things, right? That we all need to agree what we're talking about here. And so, and that's one of the problems we have in our business that when people talk about the cloud, different people mean different things. But how I would describe it, just kind of in general, would be somewhere that is not on your premises and not managed by you, that's used for a variety of things. And it can exist in a few different forms. The first one would be a public cloud, and that's what most people think of is when they're thinking of running something on AWS or Microsoft or Google. It's something that they're hosting it for many other tenants like you. um, they're taking full responsibility for the hardware, for the scaling up and down of it. um, and some might say that's they don't quite have the comfort level with that as they might with the next type of cloud. Which, Shawn, you want to tackle that?
Yeah, the private cloud is on premises. It's built to spec. The main difference between public and private is your own data center, uh, whereas in public, it's more elastic, which means that there is, with all due, with all respect there, that it's unlimited computer services availability and storage availability, whereas that you can use as much of that service for peak performance. Whereas private, you have to build your data infrastructure to peak performance, and that is the biggest difference.
And isn't there something in between?
There is. So you have some public services or storage, and then you also have some aspect of uh, your own private data center interacting with public services or storage, and that will be called hybrid. Some people have called that fog, but I think hybrid is probably the best nomenclature on this, because uh, there is the assumption that there's some services or storage on-prem and some services and storage in a public environment. So that's what a hybrid cloud is.
And in a lot of cases, that can give people kind of a stepping stone toward maybe pure public cloud hosting, where they're not comfortable just all of a sudden moving everything off prem to a public hosting scenario. You can go to hybrid, get your feet wet with it, and then perhaps evolve from there.
Correct.
So, once you've got a cloud infrastructure, once you've figured out which type of cloud do you want, how do you figure out what types of storage are available on the cloud? And what are all these different terms that we've heard over the years?
Well, I think when we think about cloud, storage was really the first option, if you would, out there. So it's a little more mature, people's understanding of it. But with storage, you have to think, what am I doing with the content? And if it is archived content, which means I don't touch it every day, I may want to touch it once a year or maybe once every other year or something like that, you'll want to put that into deep storage option. And each one of the various different public cloud uh, vendors out there offer their own kind of technology around that. But deep storage kind of sits out there. You manage some storage, and it's really pennies. The more nearline storage, or that you can access content quicker for perhaps a playback situation or readily available situation. There's storage, and that's a little more expensive. Elastic storage is interesting because you the idea there is that, let's say I want 2 petabytes of storage, but for a short period of time, I may go beyond that. So Elastic understands that I'm going to use as much storage as I want, and then when that is done, it goes back down to the size that I want. So that's and temporary storage is more for, in my opinion, of moving content and offering kind of a safe mediary process. It's not going to contain that storage for long term. You're going to use that storage, and then it's going to go away after a period of time. So,
and that's really what most people see as one of the primary advantages of going to cloud is this flexibility of pay for what you need and pay for only what you need. And people tend to think about that maybe more along the services side of things, but it's as Shawn pointed out, it's very true on the storage side that there are different levels of storage you're going to need at different times, maybe even for the same content at different points in its life cycle. And
exactly.
Why pay for more than what you need? And so you have the flexibility with cloud storage to do that and really match your costs to your actual usage.
So, what is the cost difference between those different alternatives? Which one is the most expensive and which one is the least?
Well, I think it really comes down, Wes, to accessibility. If
Okay.
you want to be able to access that piece of content now and make it readily available, that cost is going to be a little more than the deeper storage, which may, from a technical point of view, public storage use maybe an LTO
Okay.
archive in the background that they put your content on,
Okay.
and to retrieve that could take some time.
So you're paying for speed, basically.
You're paying for speed. You're paying
Got
for
it.
speed. And the other level of which we're not going to get into on this talk, the other cost factor is security as well.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Okay. So now, once we've got all our data in the cloud, what can we do with it?
Well, that's where you get into
So
the actual processing of it, right? And that's what a lot of people think about it when you're talking about cloud usage. A lot of people jump straight to services. And that's why I'm kind of glad we covered storage first, because that's often overlooked. But with services, you have a lot of the same advantages that you've got with storage in terms of your agility, your flexibility, your ability to again pay for only what you need when you need it. And that the scope of what's available there is just stunning. I'm seeing the number and types of services that are available to people is literally changing daily in the media business. It's challenging to keep up with, but it's kind of fun. I'm sure you're seeing the same kind of thing, Shawn, where what we thought was kind of the status quo, even 1 or 2 months ago, is kind of old news all of a sudden. And it's like, hey, look at all this new stuff, particularly like in the area of machine learning.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Machine learning, I still feel, as far as evolution of this technology, that we're really at the amoeba stage of AI and machine learning, of the possibilities of what that can offer. And I think really as we grow in understanding and that database grows of its understanding of being able to recognize things, I think it's incredible. The low hanging fruit, if we would offer, something that people, if you are a content creator,
Mm-hmm.
this is very important as far as the low hanging fruit. There is storage. So if you're wanting to be able to move your content off of tapes that you have in a dusty room, dark room somewhere, film or whatever, get that into deep storage, get that migrated over. But once you have it in there, having machine learning to recognize that video and various different aspects within the video and create these metadata tags and create this metadata on what you have, so it's searchable and usable on a long-term basis. And then once you do that, the you know the ideas of what you could do with your content after that is just innumerable.
So are these AI services ready for broadcasters today? Are there things that you can do today that are useful?
Oh, no doubt about it. And this is the area that is just exploding at the current point right now. And people are realizing, there are so many things that they can move over to machine learning that were formerly problematic, very manual intensive, fraught with human error. Anything that we touch, we're going to get wrong eventually, right? So, if you can have a computer do it, and even better, if it's a machine learning type of thing where it gets better with more and more of the content that it processes, why wouldn't you do that? And so that's just going nuts. And there are all kinds of services. I hesitate to enumerate them because that's going to get stale in like a couple of weeks, Wes.
Yeah, that's exactly. One of the really interesting things, even what we're seeing in the scope of color correction and using AI around color correction and being able to identify these objects and what they are and what color they should be, and then referencing those colors that it can, recognize, and then understand the depths of the color of other things within the picture, and creating a much better than somebody sitting there trying to do it by eye.
Can you tell us, first of all, how to get content in and out of the cloud, and how do people get started, with the cloud? What are some good ways for people to engage with that?
Yeah, Chris?
So it really starts with getting your content up onto the cloud, and different people take that from different perspectives. Some will say, let's just start with onboarding any new content I'm getting in up to the cloud. Others will say, hey, I've got this really deep archive. I'd like to get all that up there because who knows when I'm going to need to pull the different pieces of it. And particularly in recent weeks, right, with everybody kind of pivoting with their content that they're showing, and that they're suddenly pulling stuff out of the archive that they didn't anticipate having to. So that there are different approaches with that, and the cost generally to bring things up to the cloud is fairly reasonable, and so there aren't too many barriers there. What a lot of people tend to worry about is the egress cost. When I want to pull it out, am I really going to have to pay for that? And that's one thing that we've actually been focusing on in the Open Services Alliance. Is trying to make that less of an issue. And Shawn, you want to maybe talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things as far as mastering format, IMF, and one of the things that we're working on within the Open Services Alliance for Media is the IMF registration within the cloud, and being able to manage that. So once you get your content within the cloud, within an IMF format, then we have processes there that we're putting out that really people can connect to it, attach to it, search it, and know how to be able to play it back. So that's really cool stuff.
And also minimize the egress. And so,
minimize the egress. That's
right. Right.
That's kind of a big deal.
We've had well over 50 years of purpose-built on-prem computing technology, and as we think about moving to the cloud, this is such a new, fresh area, and the technology is somewhat the same but much different, and it's very important to start shifting toward the future and think about this technology as really the next wave.
Our passion at Florical to create the products that we create is to make sure that we are pushing the industry along and creating products that's actually needed. That, because software should respond to a certain problem and fix a problem, and looking at gaps. And that's really our focus. As broadcasters, we see the opportunity to do more with less and use our software to enhance what our customers are doing and to bring stability and consistency to their product.
I think in general our philosophy has been to not necessarily, jump on the latest bandwagon technology-wise or in terms of not following buzzwords and keywords and all that, but really, again, I like to go back to the fact that we have to deal with our customers. We have to have the products that they're going to need. So we want to make sure that our development will be targeted to those things that will be needed by our customer.
So future-proofing our products is very important. It's something that you attack a few different ways. One is which is clean architecture. You want to make sure the product is solid all the way through to the core. If you have a product that you have cobbled together something that meets a set of needs, you may have met those needs today, but you're also slowly painting yourself into a corner. Over time, that will become a more and more difficult corner to work out of, and then at that point you're saying, I want to start over with my products instead of I see how to step forward because we're future-proofed. So architecture is one angle. Another angle is to be able to see a lot of that might happen, that could happen, versus things that's not very likely to happen, and to start leaving little avenues and directions you can go with your products that will fill those needs later on.
I spent 33 years basically on the other side of the aisle being a client to many service companies. And I would say 99% of them were absolutely awful in response time and actually solving problems. And that's one of the things that lured me here to Florical. So I can tell you that what surprised me when I came to Florical and I started looking at the metrics is probably 99+% of our service calls are taken care of and resolved on that first call.
I think the number one reason to choose Florical is that we're not in competition with other people doing automation. We are genuinely partners with our broadcasters. That word is used a lot. That word is thrown around quite a bit, being partners, and it's more as a marketing term to try to get customers, as opposed to a philosophy in which to grow with our customers.
Now let's take a look at some of the services, such as Playout and automation, that we can implement using cloud technology. What broadcaster functions are covered by automation and Playout, and which one of those can we actually migrate to the cloud?
Well, I hope I know a little bit about this topic. Florical's been doing automation and Playout since 1985, so we've been in that space, in that wheelhouse, if you would, for a very long time. This is where we're focused. And as this technology is migrating into the cloud, realistically, things that the basic automation and the basic Playout are all available from the cloud. Everything from Playout of various different formats of video, live input, graphic, everything from overlays and interactive overlays and tickers and etc. All of those things are available in the cloud. The major difference from an automation provider that work with a lot of call letter and network groups, that the major difference is, time. Things that are really available in the cloud are, in my opinion, set timeline Playout. Kind of set it and forget it with minimal interactive from a user. And those things are right now available that you can move to the cloud. Okay.
So what are some of the things that you can do in the cloud that you can't do with normal on-premises and automation?
Chris, you want to take a little bit of that? I can
Yeah.
certainly talk to it.
Yeah, no, happy to. I think the answer, like a lot of things, is one size does not fit all here, right? That you know moving parts or all of this to the cloud can make a ton of sense for one particular media company, and maybe another one is a little more conservative. It can depend on their corporate culture, and also I think the nature of what they have coming in terms of the mix of pre-recorded versus live content and how
Right.
they're distributing it. I mean, you look at somebody like Netflix; they're a perfect candidate for and they did everything in the cloud,
That's
and it
right.
worked great, and they proved it out for everybody else. Another great example would be somebody like Discovery, where it gets maybe a little more challenging, where it is like Shawn pointed out, where you've got a little less certainty with your schedule if you're doing a lot of live sports, things like that. It throws some other wrinkles in there, and that's not just cloud. That's everything, right? It's a more
Uh,
complex operation.
exactly. As no two operations, as much as, I've been in this business for, I think, 25 years or more, mostly all in operations. And I can guarantee you, after being in hundreds of television stations, no two operations are exactly the same.
Wow.
Requirements are slightly different, and the management and workflow is different. So it's very important as you look at what you can do in the cloud. It's not magic. It doesn't do everything you want right now, but there again, I mean, we're talking things change so rapidly and so quickly, on this platform. Uh, what I say right now could be out of date 5 weeks from now. But uh, when we're talking about what you're doing and where you do it from, it's all based upon your requirements and level of risk and the customers you want to reach.
So given all this flexibility, how would a broadcaster go about designing their workflow to use cloud services?
I think that's an important thing, and like a lot of things, uh, the technology almost takes a back seat to the people here, right? And their
Yes.
personalities and their ability to adapt. Um, you're not really going to reap the benefits of moving this to the cloud if you just mirror what you're doing in your master control suite.
That's exactly right.
If you want to really take advantage of this, you need to re-examine everything from the ground up and say, what are our inputs? What are our outputs? How do we ideally want this all to work? And what tools are available that are out there to make it work better? Because undoubtedly there are going to be better tools than you're used to, and you're going to have a lot more flexibility with the cloud. So that's really key as far as I'm concerned. Is rather than just jumping feet first into the cloud, you need to look at you know your whole operations top to bottom, and what are the people going to be able to adapt to, and how quickly are they going to be able to adapt to it? Because
Yeah.
I mean, it can be a dramatic shift, Shawn.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a different technology architecture, and that's important to note that we're not talking apples to apples. That I'm just what I can do on prem, I can just shove that same workflow into the cloud. I think uh, that would be very damaging and allow for a lot of mistakes and could be very costly.
You know what
Uh,
this reminds me of, Shawn?
what's that?
When people went from tape to file-based
Uh-huh.
workflows, and they
Oh
just
God, yes.
duplicated their tape-based workflows with files, and they said, "Hey, we've got file-based workflows," and it's like, well, you don't really.
You don't really. No, and it's very much the same way. If you think you can just replicate what you're doing on premises into a cloud environment, I think that would be a mistake. I always encourage, and maybe it's from where I worked at NBC during the GE days where we had Six Sigma. You look at your processes and you create a process map,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to analyze all of that various different processes, your inputs and your outputs, and all these things that manage your process, and just say, okay, here are opportunities, and if we move it into a different technology platform, how do we need to manage our business different? This is very important that you have that discussion up front and you include all the decision makers that need to make that process happen.
A big part of this, when you're talking about services, you see the cloud services up at the top of this picture, is, you know, you're moving, when you're moving to the cloud, you're moving from really big kind of monolithic applications to these microservices.
That's right.
And you can either make that a huge advantage for yourself or a big problem, depending on how you manage it. You know, they don't all just necessarily plug and play together automatically, and so you need to be very thoughtful about how you're going to make all this work, and will it all just work? So something to consider.
So, let's say somebody decides to make the move. What steps are involved to migrate their workflow into the cloud? Let's say they've designed something good. How do they go about making that happen?
Yeah, I'm going to say number one, what you need is patience, because as I mentioned before, you know, on premises and computing power for purpose-built things is, you know, over 50 years we've learned our lessons and been able to create and refine. Whereas this technology platform is a little more, you know, in its infancy stage, if you would, of opportunity. And not everything is figured out. So be very patient with what you're doing, and very, you know, careful in understanding what it can and cannot do right off the bat.
And I'll throw another word in there, Shawn, agility. You know,
Yeah.
Those of us who have some gray in our beards, you know, we think back to, you know, you used to just put a new playout solution in place.
Oh,
Once
yeah.
you got all the initial kinks worked out, you were good, and generally it kept working, and you could count on that for years, and it would be pretty optimized. Whereas, you know, in a cloud environment, that would be the worst thing you could do, is just to get it going and then leave it alone. You need to design it with agility in mind, and you know, part of the benefit of going to a cloud and microservices based approach is that if something better comes along 6 months, a year, 2 years from now, you should have the flexibility and agility to pull out the old bits and replace them with the new and improved bits.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I think, let me just add, not to make this, you know, a session too long, but looking at your personnel moving forward, we've seen over the industry of taking broadcast engineers and starting to migrate IT and broadcast engineers together and create a technology division with IT and broadcast engineers playing well together. But it's important to note that your IT team may not necessarily be up to speed on cloud architecture. They may not have all the, you know, tools that they need to be able to understand this world. So you need to start bringing in, but don't throw out your broadcast engineers. I mean, these people understand workflows, they understand urgency, they understand the process and the quality of what you need at the end of the day. So you need to be able to start building that team to understand how to move forward.
So one last question. Does it make sense to completely migrate your playout to the cloud, or does it make more sense to use a hybrid type of approach?
I think that goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that there is no glib answer or one size fits all answer to that. It all depends on who you are, what the nature of your operation is. And that's why, you know, like I said earlier, you know, you don't want to just jump right into it. You want to think about, what kind of content do I principally air? What are my inputs I get the content from? You know, how am I outputting it? How am I processing it? And then look at, you know, do I fall in the category of an organization that's really well suited to jump 100% into cloud, or
Right.
are there some transitionary steps I might want to take? And I think the answer is going to vary. And I think, Shawn, you pointed out as well that some are more willing to take risks, and Some are more averse to risk, both on an individual and organizational basis, and that's got to play into this too.
It's a business decision, but at the end of the day, I think the lowest hanging fruit for this opportunity is disaster recovery. And no matter what level you are, you can utilize cloud services today and build a playout, set it and forget it type playout system for disaster recovery. And that's really should be your first target if you're adverse to risk. I think this is a very low risk, low hanging fruit to go for. After that, I think you look at some of your processes that, especially if you are a content creator, and generate a lot of content, you really need to be thinking seriously about moving into cloud and building your database of metadata of searchable video. That's really, really important.
Well, great. Well, thanks for your perspective, gentlemen. I think that there's a lot to be said for all types of cloud services in the automation and playout area, and want to thank you for your time today. Yeah. So just reminding everybody, we were talking with Shawn Maynard with Florical and Chris Lennon of the Open Services Alliance. And my name's Wes Simpson with TV Technology Magazine. Thanks for tuning in, and make sure you check out some of our other offerings. Gentlemen, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
Chris?
I would just say look at cloud as more of an opportunity than a threat, because that's what it is.
I would agree. And if I would just plug Open Services Alliance, if you're not a member, not a part of it, this is an alliance built for meeting the challenges and setting standards as we move forward as an industry. So I would definitely highly recommend every vendor and end user be a member of this.
Well, gentlemen, thank you very much.